online yet. So we knew that there was something that seemed to be interesting building up in this space. Data was getting cheaper. So the first thing that we got in was just to experiment if we could get good at stuff, which was something new in the market. We launched my first company called Still Alive Media Solutions Private Limited, and we were able to onboard about 10 of the top independent acts in India, and we were helping them out with everything from digital marketing to fan engagement and outreach program. Post that, like we ran it for about a year. It ended up, I mean, we were at a position. So this was 4 people in a college room growing to a team of, at that time, I think in the first year we had grown to a team of about 18 people, and we did have steady revenues coming in. But we knew that this was not a like it is a business, but it is not going to be something great. Like, I mean, this was not going to be the next big thing or something. And we were looking for what could be done. What is the interesting thing that could be done? And this was coming from a point of naivety also. We were not thinking in terms of your standard startup definition of problem, solution, market fit, nothing. We were like, we just want to do something interesting. Let's find what is happening. And we did a fair amount of research, which was one of the few things we did right at that point of time. And we figured that in India, air travel, the daily passenger count in air travel in India was growing steady. And even among the largest airports in India, they were dealing with, I'm guessing, close to 5.5 lakh passengers a day at that point of time. And most of this among metro was business travelers. And since data was getting cheaper, and this was one of the earlier takeaways that we already knew, we got on this quixotic mission of building a platform which would enable people to make phone calls, send SMSs and emails from airplanes while in air travel. And that was supposed to be the first version of the product. And the second version would have then bought what is called in-flight entertainment. Very quixotic mission. Before we even talked to, let's say, people on ground, we decided to build a product around it. Then we started, once we had a semi-product ready, we started reaching out to people in the industry. There were a few airline associations called Kappa. Then we had demoed the product to Air India. And 6 months or 8 months into it, after spending a fair amount of money in product building, is when we realized the particular bandwidth on which we were even get license from the government to run your telecommunication, that is logged in. That comes under, it overlaps with the military bandwidth at that point of time. And there is no way that the government was going to open it up for any private company. So 8 to 10 months of a company totally invested in a quixotic project. All the money we had made prior to that invested into it. We had a new team also. So we were about 78 people. The only thing we were lucky with, we had some IP at that point of time based on what we had developed. We sold it off, and then we were back to square one. What to do with the company now? We do not want to keep continuing running our digital marketing, and whatever big major plans we had created at that point had failed. So for us, that was the first point where we actually thought that, what are we even? For me, and that was a major turning point for me, because right out of college, a few other options existed in terms of taking up a job, or I had prepared for CFA, given CFA level 1. That would have been a different route, and this was the one which we eventually decided to spend our time and money and resources on. And coincidentally, there were a few people in our circles doing startup through first degree, second degree referrals. We also knew some people who were doing fairly well, and what we had realized was that we were a group of 4 people, all of who wanted to be product managers or idea create. Out of the four of us, nobody was out there going and doing, I will just talk to users, I will just talk to sales. This was something that was very evident early on. And early on, as in, I mean, okay, now connecting the dots in hindsight, it looks early on. It took us from 2010 to 2014 to figure this out. And in 2014, once we figured this, then what was then that company, Still Live Media Solutions? We had 4 founders at that point of time. That went down from 4 to 2 founders. The other 2 decided to take an exit because they had better opportunities, or they decided to go for higher. We reformed the company again, and because we had, in the pursuit of going after the telecommunication bit for airlines, we had ended up with a state license. So we had what is called B-type license for the state of Tamil Nadu. And since this project was taking time, one of the random things we did was we started onboarding B2B business clients, because we had a telecom license, we had optic cable fiber that we had anyway laid out. We decided to onboard clients just in case, which it was supposed to be for us just a revenue generating stream on the side till we figure what needs to be done. So we had onboarded everybody from HDFC Bank to if any of you are from Chennai, there is something called Tidal Park, then Mahindra World City. So we had close to about 18 universities. We had three major tech parks, and we had a few banks in which we were line B. And that was a consistent source of revenue, which was still happening for us on the side. So the next, after the fiasco with the airline product, we decided, okay, let's try to build something here, get it to a point where there is a business here and exit. And then we will figure out what needs to be done next. So that business, eventually we ended up hitting a point where we were doing 25 to 27 lakhs in monthly revenue. And it was acquired by Arcom when Arcom was in a good shape in towards the end of 2014. After this, so technically for us, although on paper it looked like we had done one round of startup, for us founders, it did not meet any of the goals that are out. Post that, the obvious choice was to take a job, because I wanted to work with a few startups and understand what is it that the ones that have scaled are doing different. And in pursuit of that, the first thing I did was I actually did a consulting gig with there was an overseas consulting firm in India, a Canadian consulting firm in India that primarily helped healthcare firms upgrade their. So if you are a tier 1 healthcare firm, they would help you find better channels for what is called medical tourism. And if you're a tier 2, tier 3 medical firm in India, if you wanted to expand into tier 1, we would help you discover new assets that could be greenfield projects or existing hospitals for acquisition. We did this for 2 years. I have completed 22 deals. I've been across all 25 states in India, worked with about 11 of the top hospitals in India. And this was a completely new, different sector. And for somebody who's done a startup, who had a decent exit, I was back in the field doing a job at 35,000 rupees a month, because this was something totally new. This was interesting, and it was in a domain that was completely unrelated to what I had exposure at any point of, right. A fair amount of learnings there. I was a part of the first 3 people in India to get started on this project. And again, by the time by 2018, so I started out as just, so I didn't even have a designation when we were at the team. By 2018, I was a head of their Indian, and we had done 20 successful deals in India, amounting to close to some 400 crores. And that is where I very closely knew that spaces or gaps in healthcare existed. It doesn't matter how much investment is coming in. It doesn't matter that there's a lot of government infrastructure that is getting built up. There are very definite bottleneck in healthcare. There were also healthcare and mobility. There were two things that I was consulting for. So in healthcare and mobility, I was aware that, okay, there are certain gaps. There are, in spite of everything, all the venture money that's coming in spite of, because if you look at healthcare and mobility, these are one of the domains where you've had investment from pre-independence days. This has always been there, right? And in spite of so much legacy, in spite of so much money, so much government capital, so much public infrastructure being built, the gaps were still one of the biggest gaps in any infrastructure out there. And yeah, 2017, 2018, fully work mode, not thinking much about startups. Then towards the end of 2018, coincidentally sitting, so by then I had shifted to Bangalore and started meeting up, networking with some people. And that's when I discovered that that is actually the time I had heard of venture capital, but in terms of seeing for the first time people in my first degree networks, people who had raised money from proper, not angel investors or, not from Mama Chacha Bhai and all, but from proper going and pitching serial entrepreneurs or serial angel investors, creating a business plan, thinking about valuation. This was towards the end of 2018 is when I was actually aware that these systems or the modalities existed. And that kind of also kickstarted the thing that, okay, maybe I could try to redo this again. I want to have one more go at trying to do a startup. And I wasn't like super confident of it. So I was also preparing for GMAT. So this was option A was try to build something, or option B was then if it doesn't work out, give it a year or two. And if it doesn't work out, go get your MBA done. So 2019, there were two obvious gaps I had identified. By then, doing your research, talk users, these were things that I had already kind of picked up. Thankfully, I was already into mobility and healthcare, so I already knew the users. The two ideas, just to give a little context, is one is in spite of all the Ola, so one was in mobility, which was that in spite of all Ola, Uber, and the other players in the market, when a person travels from, let's say, Bangalore to Delhi, there's first mile, there's middle mile, there's last mile, and it doesn't matter matter how much venture money has come in, how much technology has come in, you still have to do three different stages of booking. You still have a chance of dropping off anywhere in between, and a failure at any of these touch points. Let's say you reach Bangalore airport a few hours late. It doesn't matter all the arrangements you have done. Your whole money for that complete chain which you have invested is gone. And so the again 2018 towards the end, and I wanted to know a bit more about mobility. And since I already had a fair amount of experience in growth, QCride was a upcoming growing startup. They had launched carpooling in India, and they were a two-sided marketplace. That time they were doing, I guess, close to about 40,000-50,000 daily rides a day, and they wanted to expand from, I guess, four to beyond, because they were already live in 4 cities, organic growth. Over the next span of the next few months, QCride had a fantastic in terms of growth and operation, and the product value proposition was very. You travel every day, morning and evening, on a repeat circuit where you're not looking for options. You know you're going to office. You know you have to be office at a particular time, and you have to come back. And just on outer ring road in Bangalore, every day there's close to 1.2 lakh people who do that circuit, who are in what is called a category called double income, no children. People who earn over anywhere from 80,000 to 1.2 lakhs a month, and who repeat this route. So the market was already there. The product value proposition was one of the simplest you could have. You get to travel carpool with a daily set of repeatable daily set of people whom you can trust, right? So you end up creating a community, which is very different from carpooling for intracity, where you're getting on a random person's car. You don't know who they are. You have issues of security and who are they working with. You could solve this for intercity by verifying people, by giving you clear profile view of who that person is, what company is he working for. And we used to verify that with the company domain ID. And once you do that, once you get your early, and we were cheaper by Ola or Uber by 10x. So if Ola was going to cost you anywhere from 200 to 250, QCride would get that ride done for pretty much anywhere from 18 to 25 rupees, right? Because you are carpooling with somebody in a private person's car. The person is making that travel anyway. So for him, it's not just about the money. He is maybe sitting for 2.5 hours in traffic. He wants to sit with people over time. So it was also about, as much about the community building part of the product as much as about getting a person from point A to point B. So QCride growth was an interesting. During the time I was there, we grew from 4 to 11. Raised their Series A happened at that point of, and eventually by the time I left, we were at about 3 million users, and we were doing close to 2 lakh daily rides, and we had presence in every major metro city in India, plus cities like Kochi, Indore, which were not a part of the major. So one of the key takeaways there for me was on filling the gaps without building too much complicated products, and early tracks. These were things I picked up there. Coming back to the idea, so one was that mobility was still not for all the service like QCride, like Uber, that there was still a service gap. And if you realize, if anybody's in Bangalore or if anybody's in Delhi, NCR, you'll realize that people who travel from Noida to Delhi, or people who travel from, let's say, on the outer ring road every day, or in places in Mumbai, one of the largest, Mumbai is a little bit more efficient that way, but in other cities, one of the biggest problems with public transport is not that public transport doesn't exist, but two key reasons. One, ETA of public transport cannot be predicted. So you do not know if you will reach office by 11 o'clock, and you did not want to have the hassle of carrying change. We created a pilot project, submitted it to BMP, where we could bring the whole thing electronic. People would have, so even before starting from your house, you could look at a bus traveling from South Bangalore to North Bangalore, and you could predict, based on the traffic conditions, it would predict that, okay, if you want to reach your office by 10, you have to be at this bus stop by 7:20, 7:30, and you could pay for the ticket already online. BBMP is one of the largest bus operators in India. They have close to 400 buses, and they have a very technology-friendly management. So we did pitch to them, but eventually, creating the financial model, we figured out that we would have to raise somewhere close to anywhere from 35 crores to 45 crores just to get the early set of traction testing done. So that was in the mind. That was something I was pursuing. On the side, the other option was, in my circle, there was a lot of friends who were doctors, and I knew that what we realized from conversations is these guys would have days where they were preparing for their masters or NEET or whatever exam that was, and they would have off days, not by choice. They would have certain days they were like, dude, I'm just sitting, I don't have a short-term stint to do, or I don't have a job stuff, and because that is the nature of the job. Nobody takes early doctors on payroll. And I had an incident where I knew that the same areas where these doctors were, the Narayanas and Fortis there, had a problem that they did not have doctors in OPD, and they had to turn patients away. So they were losing. So within a 5 kilometer radius itself, I knew doctors who were sitting jobless, and I knew hospitals who wanted doctors and who were turning patients away because they did not have the medical staff to cater. So now, before I deep dive into MedPiper, I'll just stop here for a second. Am I talking too fast?
Hey folks, feel free to ask your question. It sounds good. We can go
Cool,
ahead
cool.
joining.
So
I think Kshitij has a question.
Yeah, sure, go on.
Yeah, sorry,
Sure.
if you could go a little slower, then
Yeah, okay.
sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So the medical idea that so I had two options at that point of time. One was, so one of the, okay, before going into what I did with the ideas eventually, one of the key things, takeaways for me from my early access was I was not willing to redo a startup before I knew that I will have some ground, before I knew that the product, not only will I be able to launch a product, but the product will at least have an early set of paying customers. And I only once I have clarity on that, will I get full fledged into doing a startup. This was the first rule I set for. The second rule I set for myself was I will not look for a co-founder until and unless I need a co. The third rule was I was not going to build a product for sure. If I could get away without building a product and getting an early set of users, that is what I. And then I had to quantify this into numbers. So the numbers I quantified was in mobility we wanted to see if we could get government grants to get this up and moving, because we were solving primarily for a public problem and public infrastructure investment was necessary there. For healthcare, for me, the numbers that I had looked at was so healthcare also had a problem in India, that be it Practo, be it Librate, no Indian healthcare startup has ever made unit economic positive money. This was a major and this was an issue among investors. So at that point of time, very early on, even talking to the people who were not just venture capital investors but private equity investors, had this mindset that if you're building a healthcare product in India, build it for the US, because if you're going to sell it in India, you're not going to. And that was a concern. And I was at a point in my life where, which is one of the things you learn over time, it doesn't matter how passionate you are, your life is more important than all your startup ideas. You need to figure out what you want to do in life. You might have people who are dependent on you, might have you want to have a good life at the end of right. You are, of course, you are passionate about it, of course you want to change the world, of course you want to make it better, but your personal wellness, your mental peace cannot be the sacrifice that you put on the pedestal of. So this was something very clear. So for me, the user numbers were, we had to get to 10,000 doctors organically. I will not spend anything more than 500 rupees a week. That was my goal for marketing. And in terms of revenue, I wanted to hit 10 lakhs in revenue before I register the company. And I want to do this in 6 months, like because speed matters. It didn't matter that it would have taken me a year to get to 10 lakhs. That means there's no business there. So mobility was pretty much then, like 4 or 5 weeks into it, meeting of stakeholders. I had a friend was the head of policy at Vogo, and somebody who was the head of policy at Ola also, and the head of policy at QCride. We had actually got together. There was a policy roundtable set up for mobility. We had pitched for a lot of government people, and we realized that this is gonna take, just to get moving, just to say that okay, we have a product out there, at least 18 months. So that for me straight away was like, I am not, for me right now, that is not, like, the time in my life is more important than chasing something that seems a little way off, where you invest 18 months and then you are waiting approvals from third party agencies whose best interests are not to solve that problem, because you have government changes, you have a lot of government stakeholders. So that variance was not okay. At the same time, what I did for the doctor thing for testing was, since I said my rule was not to build a product, I was a single founder at that point of time. What do I do? And the simplest option was, what were the users I was trying to build for already. And I saw that what doctors had these small groups on what, where they would have anywhere from 20 doctors to 200 doctors, and then groups on Telegram where there would be like 2000, 2500, 2800, 3000 doctors, and they would just locally share whatever local jobs are available, or whatever they knew in the first or second or third degree net. So through a friend of mine, I got access, and I realized that one of the internal problems there was, it was through first or second or third degree reference. So A, either the job ended up landing up with some recruiter, actually did not have that job, or B, by the time somebody reacted to that job was already. And three, the default problem with running any chat app based community, your job alerts get lost in conversation. So people will have to get scroll back and stuff. But people were still solving using the same problem, right? So I mean, now thinking about it, maybe I would have refined it a little further. I did the same thing. I created another one group, and I got the 8 doctors that I knew, and I told them, boss, you have to, only by referral do we take, and over and above that, they have to pay a money to get platform. So A, you have to be referred. B, you have to wait for 72 hours to be on the platform. and see. So we started off with 200 rupees, we went on till 1800 rupees, and then we bought it back to 7 because we saw that a lot of the early sign up conversion used to happen from 0 to 1000 rupee range. 1000 to 1800 number of people signing up versus number of people eventually onboarding was different. So the ideal rate that we figured out was 50 over time, but we started with 8 doctors on 19th of September. By the last day of September, we had filled out the one WhatsApp group was already run. 240 users was complete. 240, 245, whatever that number is. By December first week, I was already close 4000, and these were all paid. And the retention numbers were amazing. These people were paying me month on month on, and that is when I felt that something seems to be working. I seem to be doing something right, and our value proposition for hospitals was the simplest value proposition. You have one number, save it on your group on WhatsApp. You could be the HOD, you could be the floor resident, superintendent of the floor, or whatever it is. Just save a WhatsApp number. Every time you have a vacancy, it's a free listing. You just send a requirement on that WhatsApp number in a particular. And even that, early days, what I did is, which we even do today, we don't wait for them to send a WhatsApp. Every 3 hours, we send them a WhatsApp. Hey, if you have a vacancy, just answer here. And then somebody from either, at that time it was automated. I used to send out a WhatsApp bot. Now for larger hospitals, somebody reaches out. So every day we used to have between 20 to 25 jobs. By December, 98% of the listings were getting closed in under 2 minutes on the platform. And some of the standout use cases was, there was actually a job vacancy in Fortis Hospital, which they had opened for. I'm guessing it was for an interventional cardiologist or something. That job vacancy was open for 8.5, and they had not been able to close it in 8.5. On our platform, that job listing, once it came, it got closed in like 2 hours. And the Fortes HR reached out to us asking, what is it? What is that you guys are doing? Like, sir, you seem to have a problem. Do you want to sign up with us as a hospital? So eventually we did not sign up with the larger hospitals. We ended up, so hospitals in India work on what is called a hub and a spoke model. So we ended up signing up with spokes instead of hubs for the simple reason that we did not have a product. These are large hospitals. They need IT infrastructure. There are compliance laws. They cannot just randomly work somebody who's running a WhatsApp group. But the spokes can have a budget for solving their operation. So we used to get paid out by the HR at the local spoke level. And the revenue target was hit in February itself. And in March, first week is when we hit the 10,000 doctor number. 10,000 paid doctors signed up. And again, this could not come from the repeat users. All 10,000 users had to be new users. And as I started getting into the idea, I started refining the goals again. I got a little more stingy about them. I said, okay, I need to have at least 40% retention rate by the time I have 10,000 doctors on my platform. And in my head, I was still running out of time because I needed to have hit these numbers by. So in March, March first week was that magic week for me. We hit 10,000 doctors. The day I hit, and I remember I got the 10,000 doctors payment on somewhere around 7:30 next day morning. I walk into QCredit, I give my resignation. So in December, I had already applied for. IIM Bangalore has a startup school called NSRCell. We were part of what is called pre there. I put in my resignation, took an off from the office for the same day, went to NSRCL and told them I need to register a company now. This seems to be working. And the first thing, one of the my favorite mentors there is a ma'am called Mini Murlidhar. She said, okay, your unit economics is working. Where is your co-founder? Because now that if you're going to run this as a business, you cannot be doing both. You seem to know how to grow this. You seem to know how to sell this. You cannot be building. Because if you're going to be building this, you're building a marketplace, find a co-founder. And that actually in the early, so to boil down the thing, when you're doing something right, it becomes very noticeable. Start seeing the pattern. You do not want to build before the proof comes. Wait for the proof to come in. Talk to users, understand why they're, and build the early tracks, and then worry about everything else. Then worry about what is going to be my product. How is it going to look like? Who's going to be my co? How much should I have? Should I take an office or not? These are not concerns you need, right? Do research into. So I already knew this was a big problem. Like for a hospital like Apollo, just for the Chennai, Bangalore, and TAM is important. Knowing what the total addressable market is important to know if you're even building a startup that could scale, and if you're solving for a problem that could be replicated, where your playbook for what you're implementing could be replicated on scale. SAM and SOM are important in helping you derive the valuation of what, because let's say that your serviceable addressable market, for me it was the three states down south. So all the hospitals where these short terms could be solved for, or long term duties could be solved for, plus all the free floating available doctors, was my serviceable addressable market. And even at that point of time, a fair amount of clarity I had that based on that, I know that I can capture 10% of this market, and if I capture so and so percentage of the market, then that is my value, because that is the most yes status derivative in your early. People will talk about discounted cash flows, they will talk about, look at your competitors. Honestly, to a certain degree, all that is bullshit, because in your early startup days you do not have model for any. What you do have a clear cut model is, what is a market you're going after locally in the next 1 year, and what is that percentage of the market you can. So what the market you go after locally is your serviceable, obtainable, addressable market. Obtainable is the one you're going after, and what percentage of the obtainable market do you think you can capture, and what does the data indicate? You have to correlate. So if you are growing at 20% or 25% month on month, you know that for sure you'll hit that in a few months. But if you're only growing at 6 or 7%, then you can't say I will capture 25% of that market in the next, unless you already raise some angel capital or something and invest crazily in marketing, which I would not recommend at that point of time. So with these things in mind, I knew that I had to build a product but I also knew I was not catering to an audience who were coming back to me and saying, give us a product. So I knew that I had a fair amount of runway in trying to find a co. And this time I wanted to do it right. I wanted to get somebody I could completely trust. So one of the key things I had was, I wanted somebody who was not only smart enough, but somebody who had a very good equation with me. So, or I could have a very good equation. So I could trust them to build the best product that they can. And somebody who would not be happy with what they did. That I know it kind of sounds silly, but I think that is one of the key things. If people are happy with what they do on a day basis, they are never going to grow, because pretty much in their head they have hit plateau. They think that this is enough to get the job done. And there I was lucky, because one of my college friends was also the department topper for computer science. He was with Wipro, he did his MBA, and then he was with Ernst& Young building Ernst& Young's IT products for their healthcare startup. His name was Pranay. He was my college roommate, and coincidentally 2020 he landed a back in bank for a client, and he was super, like, so we met up like after 4 years. We were having a beer, and one of those cliche moments, he like, dude, fuck my job. I don't want to do my job. I'm done with this. I don't care. I'll sit at home. I'll figure what needs to be done, but I cannot keep. And for me, that was a aha moment. I'm like, this is exactly what I want. Because A, I can trust this guy. B, I know he's good at what he does. And he was saying this after he had got relocated to Bangalore, and they had just offered him partner track at the end. Now, okay, cosmetically everything was set. Now my biggest problem was I could pay, and this was a guy sitting on close to 67 lakh in annual CTC plus fair amount of bonus. So I couldn't even pay him 1/10 of what getting. I was very clear about that. So that took a fair amount of time to figure out. So that is where I said valuation matter. At the same time, he was also fair enough to say that. So I was the only. So my parents are from Kerala, so my nickname is Mallu because I'm Malayali in my group. So he was like, Mallu, what if this thing fails? Right? I am okay with that. But what if I fail for you? And tomorrow you need to go for a tech founder, right? You do not want to do what we did. I mean, so he knew my early startup. You do not want to do what I saw you guys did when you guys did Still Alive, right? And you burn a lot of bridges that. So when he came on board, he actually just came for 2% equity, and he said, if I achieve so and so milestones, you expand it, right? What you want to be the first version of the product, MVP, that will be done. And uske liye, I know that 2% is an over this one, but okay, whatever it is. Now you are saying that I will have stake. I will have stake. We built out the early MVP then, and we built out as an app. We got a fair amount of downloads there, but and today, even today, that it is one of the shittiest apps created. But the users did not care, which again is a validation. When a user does not care how bad your product is to get the value proposition, and they keep coming back, you know that you're solving a problem, right? They are okay with bugs. We had users calling up and saying, you know what, my login failed, but I just wanted to recheck if that application was done. Or the kind of feedbacks we used to get to be like, okay, your app crashed 2 times or 3 times today, but there were no issues. We just wanted to let, which is the user telling us it is okay. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing, and we're willing. And yeah, then we still kept on growing. We hit about. Then we actually stopped our growth because we changed a few. Earlier, you could refer anybody. Once you cross like 10,000 doctors, you can't take anybody on. You had to have a proper validation mechanism that that I implemented already when it was at 5,000. And once Pranay came in, we created like a robust. I was also lucky that Pranay comes from a family. In his family, there were people who owned a small, so it was easier for us to also understand from a hospital point of view if anything had to be tweaked or changed, how to do it, and how do doctors approach these problems. Even from, if you're a government doctor, how do you think about it? If you're a private hospital doctor, how do you think about it? If you're a new graduate, how do you think about it? These were certain mindscapes that we were able to cover. We created a proper validation model for authentication and verification for 6 states. Another 10 we had set up license officers, and we were now ensuring in achieving critical mass in Kochi, in Trivandrum, in this place called Malappuram in Kerala. So these were parts in Kerala. Then in Tamil Nadu, we were going after Coimbatore and Chennai. In Bangalore, I mean, in Karnataka, we were focused on Bangalore, and we were focused on Chikbal for a lot of reasons. And Pune was another critical mass. So internally, we decided that okay, the numbers are working. Now it is a supply demand market. We have a fair amount of supply in this market. Let's just build it. Go to the hospital, go to the clinic, give our number, make sure. So which we came to later know in YC, there is this concept of I think it's the brothers who invented Stripe. They had a method of onboarding. Their method of onboarding was not sending a user, getting him in a call and saying, okay, here is a product APK, please download, or here is the form, go fill the form. They used to go to the client, they used to take their laptop, sit, finish the integration, give back, and say done. The path that I took was very similar. Go walk into a hospital, meet up, sit up. It didn't matter. I have to sit for 4 hours just so that I could enter MedPiper phone number on the phone. So we did this, but what eventually ended up happening was from doing 20 to 30 duty vacancies a day, we were getting 200 to 300 duty vacancies listed every day. So by the end of this exercise in 3 months, on a platform level, we had closure rates had come down because we suddenly had a large set of doctors. So that wasn't the key metric. The key metric was for every job that was getting posted, how many people apply, in how much time do they apply, and how fast does it get closed. So 2 minutes actually dropped down to 47, and we had jobs getting closed in 47 seconds. For every job, we had at least anywhere from 220 to 240 people applying, and the total number of job listings were going up on a day-to-day, week-on-week. So yeah, that's when in June we applied to Y Combinator. So that till all the things that we did to get into Y Combinator. We had growth, we had traction. There was an early team which was just 2 people. It was fully bootstrapped. We had not raised any funding, but at the same time, we had ensured that we had some signs of revenue. So I'll just pause again here if any questions on how to get. So for us, this was our 0 to 0.1. That's how we built. And any questions there, I'll be happy to take.
Thanks. Opening up for questions.
Jay has.
Hi, Nitin.
Hi.
So I had a question. So, while reaching out to Y Combinator, there's one thing required to mention your valuation of the company, even if it's in the growth stage.
Yes.
So, how did you come out to that point, like the valuation?
So I'll answer the question in two parts. We actually reached out to Y Combinator in December when I was a single founder, solo founder, and I had about 1,700 doctors on the platform. But even then, I was charging for them. And Y Combinator's valuation model is very simple at that point of time. X number of users into unit pricing per user is what you are charging today. How big can this get is one of the questions they have on their form, if you remember. And how big can you get this? How many of these users exist? How much of them will continue to keep paying? And then what is the end number? So I was charging per doctor, and we had about that point of time 4,500 doctors. So 4,500 doctors into 750 rupees per month is what I was taking my MRR. And the floating population of doctors in India for South India at that time was close to 67,000 doctors. 67,000 doctors into 750 rupees into 12 months was what immediately I knew I could capture in the next few months. So this was the form in December. I filled out the form. We got a call back. YC reached out to us. One of the YC partners took my interview. She starts with the interview saying, "You're not getting in right." I just wanted to preempt it that we think you are not ready, but we think you're doing something that seems to be working. And what we want to do is they reiterated the same pain point. I mean, same which I had in mind. The healthcare startups in India do not have a history of making money, right? And they had gone it one level deeper and noticed that, and that is because most platforms cannot scale doctors. They cannot acquire doctors fast enough. You seem to have hit 4,000 doctors, but the nature of, she understood what the nature of the doctors, everything was. She was like, 4,000 seems good. It is fantastic. But if you can do better, if you can come to me with 6,000 doctors by July, that was a goal they gave. If you can come to me with 6,000 doctors in July with at least a 20% retention graph, it tells me there is actually something here which you are building and it could scale, and we would be happy to take. So when we applied the next time, we were at 12,000 doctors. Our retention was above 47%, and all the numbers were right. So we reapplied the form. We just said that our form was primarily, so it's again an update of the form, because once you already have an application, you are taking the same application and you're just updating the numbers. So interview was for some weird reason, by this time I already had a co-founder. We had prepared a roadmap, but once the interview was over, we were pretty much sure we did not make it, because there were back-to-back YC interviews. One of the most, you will not have crammed so much for your 10th 12th boards or your AAEE or IIT JEE or not. And on YC interview, so what you have is 10 minutes, and the model we had prepared was any question that they asked, that answer should not be longer than it. We created a 14-page doc. We talked to close to 18 XYC alumni. We asked them to do our mock interview. We did the whole set of preparation. Everything was written down. Day and night we were sitting and remembering our own metrics. Finally, what we did is we whiteboarded our metrics onto, so it was pretty much a similar setup, and there's a wall behind the screen, and we just whiteboarded our whole metrics. So the minute they asked us anything regarding our company, we knew on the spot, because we had the data right in front. In spite of doing all that homework, we thought we are done. Then we were lucky. Then yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe they liked it. We got a call back. They said that, okay, but now we know that you applied last time. Last time you did not have a product. We need to see how good you are at building a product. Show us what you have. And there, this was just 3 weeks after Pranay coming in. Pranay had already built out an APK file. We had pushed it out to Google Play Store. It was not public yet. So we just mailed them the APK file. We were like, hey, here, you know what, go and download. And that was actually the day they called. So Vice is on Pacific time, so it's in the night. That day, earlier in the morning, is when we started porting whatever job comes onto the app and some of the early users. And in the night, we get a call saying, send us your app link. So when the app eventually landed, and we gave them username passwords, because otherwise they cannot log in, because you had to be verified. So when they logged in, they had like 2,500 jobs and another 30-40 that had come in the few hours that they were logged in. And for them, that was, I mean, I guess that worked. After that, we got a call again, and that's when they said, yes, you are in, welcome to the cohort. So YC happened eventually during the, so YC core program, or what is generally assumed as for 45, it's for, so the first 45 days is primarily about how do you grow and all that, and the next 45 days you focus on, okay, now that we are here, what is the roadmap ahead and how do we plan for fun. By the time we August 2nd was our demo day. By August 1st, we were at 47,000 daily on our platform. 47,000 registered users, out of which we had close to 22,000 daily users on our platform. We were live at close 656 hospitals down South India. And one thing we started measuring after we got into YC was, due to the doctors we put at these hospitals, how many extra patients hospitals serve, which was a number we did not start looking at early. In those 90 days, we had realized that we had close to 7.5 lakh extra people treated without actually being in healthcare daily. That was a massive number for us. I mean, for anybody, right? And we are not even we're not a teleconsult firm. We're not a hospital. We're not a clinic. But there was actually a ground impact. And then, so YC, how it happens is you have your